Shalom and welcome to the Middle East Report. In this programme today we'll be discussing the extraordinary high levels of Jew hatred that are both in Britain and in the Republic of Ireland, thanks to an author doing investigative work through his new book, Taming of the Jew. Warm welcome to the programme, and we have a special guest today. He's an international guest. His name is Tuvia Tenenbom, author of The Taming of the Jew as well as Catch the Jew. You've been described as the Israel version of Michael Moore or Borat because of your investigative journalism, and last time you were here was in 2019 when you were doing research for your latest book. So it's great to have you back in the studio now your book is published.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you, Simon, again.
Likewise.
Thank you.
And Tuvia, for our viewers, I mean, you have quite an extraordinary background. You were born in Israel to Holocaust survivors. Do you want to share your kind of family story that I think deserves to be told?
The family story is a classic Jewish story. I mean, my father comes from Poland. My mother comes from Romania. The family of my father came to what was a British mandate. Just before the war, the Second World War. My mother arrived in Israel after serving time, so to speak, in a concentration camp in Romania. And that's the story. From my father's side, I am a child. My father was a rabbi, and go long line of rabbis. My great-grandfather was the Rebbe, the Grand Rabbi of Radzin, of a Hasidic court called Radzin, Izbitzer Radzin, or Radzin, and which was very famous at the time, very successful at the time, with many Hasidic followers. And that Hasidic court has been decimated. I mean, practically almost nothing has survived. On my mother's side, her father, my grandfather, was the rabbi of the city where they lived, and he also died in the Holocaust. And basically 90% of my family died before I was born in this Nazi regime of World War II.
Yeah. And what was your life like growing up in Israel?
My life growing up in Israel, I grew up in both Bnei Brak, which is a Haredi, ultra-Orthodox city, and in Jerusalem, in the ultra-Orthodox part of it, in Mea Shearim. I grew up Haredi, I grew up ultra-Orthodox. I was raised to be a rabbi, but when after I grew up, I changed a little bit the plan, and I went to the United States. I spent 15 years in various universities, studying various disciplines, including mathematics, computer science, English literature, finance, whatever you want, I don't even remember, journalism, all kinds of things. So it was a great time. And then I founded the Jewish Theater of New York. And then I moved a little bit also for journalism. And at one point, one of my plays came to Hamburg in Germany. That's where I met my wonderful wife, Hissy. She's right there.
She's wonderful.
And since then, I am spending my time between both New York and Hamburg, but also in many other parts of the world. It depends where the book is. It depends where the articles for the papers are. So every time, different. Just this year, I was in Russia, for example, also in Czech Republic, in many other places, Austria, and Israel, in Germany, and whatever. And New York, of course.
Yeah. So this is Tuvia's latest book, which is an expose of anti-Semitism in Britain and Ireland called The Taming of the Jew. Before we got into the book, though, you wrote the book, famous book, Catch the Jew. Why did you decide to do this kind of style of writing and a style of journalism to actually engage what ordinary people think about a particular subject, particularly when it comes to Israel and the Jewish people.
And to start with, my which is a beautiful career, which just so happened, I have already 4 bestsellers in between the books. It's not my idea to write books. I used to write I still do, for a paper in Germany called Die Zeit, and then some editor from a German publishing company asked me if I wouldn't mind to write a book about Germany, to stay in Germany longer than I usually do, and travel the land and write a book about Germany. And I did, and I found Germany to be anti-Semitic, which was very sad to find out. The book is called I Sleep in Hitler's Room, and the book became a Spiegel bestseller. And after that book, it came another book. I mean, my editor said, you came to our country, Germany, you spent 6 months there, why don't you go to the country where you were born? You know, initially I didn't even want to do it. I said, what am I going to do? I mean, it's like, there are so many books, so many articles written about Israel. So actually you offered me more money, so basically. And the style of writing is, look, I grew up in universities. I grew up in a yeshiva world. I was raised to be a rabbi. And I'm very familiar with the brainy kind of language. But I found out that the hardest part in writing is not to write brainy. It's very easy to write brainy. I can write for you a 500-page brainy book that nobody will understand, probably including myself, in 1 week. And it's going to be praised and lauded as the brainiest books ever written. But it's not effective.
Yeah.
It doesn't do anything. You know, and I learned that to take big issues, complex issues, political, philosophical, whatever it is, psychological, and break them down to the most basic components and making it as if it was written in one night. That takes months of sleepless nights, 7 days a week. There is no way you can do anything, just sit there and write. To make it simple, to make something simple that everybody can read, the professor in the university and the taxi driver in London. That takes hard work, but that's the most effective. Because by the end of the day, people are human beings. It's emotions that makes us move. We have to be interested, it has to have a flow. And that's how I decided, you know, my books are not going to be brainy. They are going to be very simple language, so everybody can understand them. And it is effective. I mean, the fact is, you know, most of my books have become bestsellers. And the reason is because I make it very simple. You have to inject a little bit humor. I mean, you have to look at it with a funny eye, even if it's very complex. And that's how you talk to the people, because we human beings are not creatures of braininess. We are creatures of emotions. We are creatures of stories. That's what drives us. So you have to make it interesting to the people, drive the same points, you know, come up with the same findings, but make it simple. Make it interesting.
And Tuvia, when you were here 2 years ago, when you started your research, your first visit was to the Republic of Ireland. If we look back 2 years ago, it feels like a completely different world now. I mean, in terms of Britain, Brexit was dominating the political headlines. You had Theresa May as the Conservative Prime Minister. Of course, Jeremy Corbyn was leader of the Labour Party. There were huge concerns amongst the Jewish community and the Jewish population here that if Jeremy Corbyn got the keys to 10 Downing Street, then this would result in a massive wave of aliyah out of this country on behalf of the Jewish community, and genuine fear amongst members of the Jewish community. So that was the kind of climate that you wrote this book. But why did you first decide to go to the Republic of Ireland and go to Dublin to start the first chapter of your book?
First of all, I'll challenge you on what you said. I don't think there's much difference between then and now. Yes, Jeremy Corbyn was the leader of the Labour Party, he's an anti-Semite. But during my travels, when I tried to get Jewish leaders to say, is Jeremy Corbyn an anti-Semite? Almost no Jewish leader agreed to say it in public. Only after Jeremy Corbyn left, okay, all of a sudden, okay, he's the anti-Semite. It was a cop-out to say that Jeremy Corbyn is anti-Semite. I will say that. Because as if all the anti-Semitism in Great Britain is emanating from the head of one man with a little beard. No, it doesn't work like that.
Of course it doesn't.
It takes the people who voted for him. I mean, even after the last election here in Great Britain, over 10 million people voted for Jeremy Corbyn. We know everything about Jeremy Corbyn, and still they voted for him. Nothing really changed. The only reason Mr. Boris Johnson got the nomination is because he was very clear on Brexit, and Jeremy Corbyn was not. But by the end of the day, there's not much, and I am again in Great Britain, I see the same thing. Nothing really changed. But the idea is the way I started in Dublin, because I did not know, when I went to write the book, I did not know there was any anti-Semitism in Great Britain. And at the time there was Brexit, and I also wanted to cover the theatre, because I always loved British theatre, especially the English theatre.
That's why I named the book.
And that was the idea. The idea initially was to write a book about Brexit and theatre, well, theatre and Brexit. So I decided, okay, if I only go Brexit, I have to go to the stopgap over there, you know, so I have to start with Dublin. I started with Ireland, and then go through the what maybe will be the border if Brexit, you know, on the island of Ireland. So I just wanted to see it for myself. So I started with Ireland, Northern Ireland, you know, and then moving Scotland, England, and Wales, because this is the original idea. But it didn't work out that way. My first interview was in Dublin. I was not there even for 24 hours, and I'm sitting with this guy, and I said to him, tell me about Ireland. I know nothing about it. I've never been to Ireland before. Tell me about Ireland. Tell me about Irish people. So he started telling me about the Catholics, the Protestants, this and this, Good Friday agreements, you know, and all these issues. And he said, how much Sinn Féin and Schmi Féin or whatever it is. I've never met a person from the Sinn Féin. I mean, it's like, what is this? What language is this? You know, and then he says to me, you know what? We don't agree on anything. We would rather kill each other. But there is, except for one thing we agree on. What do you agree on? All of us are against Israel. All of us don't like Jews. That was like my introduction to this little world. From nowhere. And then it went on and on and on and on. Everywhere I went in this great country, very prosperous country, and it was shocking. It was shocking to see so much hate. And the Jews were hiding, and they are still hiding. I mean, if you want to go to East London, go to the mosque, you know, you can walk on the mosque, no problem. Nobody's going to check your bags. There's no security, there's nothing. You just walk into the mosque. Go to a temple, you know, you have security, CTS, CBT, PPP, fences. Many temples don't have the name of the temple outside because they are afraid. I mean, it's like the Jews live here in fear and in a huge denial. And that's what I found out. It was frightening to see how much hate, an ingrained hate for the Jew, for no reason. Everywhere I went, I presented myself as a German journalist, which I am. I've come here from Germany. My contract for the book is a German publishing company called Surkamp. And the people told me what they think. I would stop on the streets, be it London, be it Glasgow, Belize, or wherever, whatever, talk to young people and ask them, tell me, my dear friends, is anything that bothers you? Is anything you would like to change in the world? Is anything that makes you sleep this quietly, unquietly? Yes. What is it? Palestine. Is there anything you'd like to change in the world? Yes. Free Palestine. And these people who say to me, you are not Muslims, they are not Afghanis, they are not Pakistanis, they are Bangladeshis, and white people. Young, old, educated, not educated, wherever I went. I try to understand, where is Palestine? Tell me, you tell me, where is Palestine? Here is my iPhone, here is the map of the world, point to where Palestine is, or Israel is. Couldn't tell. Can you tell me the difference, the distance between Jerusalem and Palestine? Oh, I have to check it on Google. Can you tell me the difference between the distance between Jerusalem and Israel? Gotta check it in Google. I have no clue what you're talking about. But by the end of the day, when I ask the people, why does the issue of Palestine bother you so much? Do you know what happens in China? That the Chinese take 1 million Muslims and put them in camps, re-educating camps, basically concentration camps.
Yeah.
Have you heard of it? No. Do you have anything to say about Chechnya? Do you know what happened over there? Never heard a word. Do you know what happens in Syria? Do you know what happens in Yemen? Do you know what happens anywhere? No. The only bad thing in the world, Palestine, Israel. Why? When you ask him deeply and you engage in a conversation, why is this the only issue? Some would say, I don't really know. And some would say, well, because on the other side there are the Jews. Excuse me? Excuse me, what have the Jews done to you? They are the scourge of the land.
Should we show one of your?
Yes.
Should we show one of your excellent videos of when Tuvia was in the Republic of Ireland and also Northern Ireland, researching for his latest book, The Taming of the Jews.
Why do you have here, you see, let me show you. You have this solidarity with Palestine. What do you have to do with Palestinians in Derry?
I honestly don't know. Don't follow politics.
It's the first time you see it?
No, no.
You live here?
Yeah.
And you have Palestinian flags?
You have many of flags of many of different things that half the people don't understand what the
No, but
flags are.
this is only
Yeah.
Palestine.
Yeah.
You know anything about this? Nothing. You never asked.
Don't ask, don't ask.
Will these things be done by Catholic or by Protestants? What do you think?
By an artist.
By an artist?
Mm-hmm.
And the artist you think is Catholic or Protestant?
You don't judge.
That you don't judge? Okay. So this is a work of art?
Yes, well someone has made it a work of art. Any statement, any piece of art, it's art.
May I ask you a question? Why do you have Palestinian flags over there?
Huh?
Why do you have Palestinian flags?
I have no idea.
You have no idea?
No, I have no idea.
You have your Palestinian flags. Why that?
Because Palestinian people are fighting for their freedom, and I kind of think it's, when we look back, we have come on so far in the past 40 years of peace process and stuff like that.
Do you also identify with other minorities like Kurds in Kurdistan, Chechens in Chechnya? Do you know anything about what happens in Chechnya? You have no clue. You have no clue.
In saying,
so how come you know only about Palestinians?
no, in saying that, I don't even know what the Palestinian war is about or anything, but I do know the fact that there's children being killed, things being bombed.
Who's killing them? Who's killing them?
Bombs and
Who?
bullets.
Who's throwing bombs at them?
I haven't a clue.
Who's killing the Palestinians?
Don't ask me.
You don't know?
I haven't a clue. I cannot just.
Are the British killing the Palestinians?
Suppose a lot of people. No, I don't know. No. I
So
don't
who's
think it
killing
is.
them?
I haven't a clue. I haven't a
You
clue.
know something, you know a little bit.
I don't know a little bit on
But
saying that.
just the Jews, what do you mean?
Just
the
what you
Jews.
see on the TV.
Just the Jews, right?
Right. Yeah.
As far as I know, the Jews.
People here in the Bogside have an affinity with the Palestinians, the Basques, Catalans. Just basically, we
But do you see, basically what you see, there is big Palestinian thing over there. Palestinian flag here, Palestinian flag there, Palestinian flag there, a lot of us. So the majority of your sympathies go to Palestinians.
I wouldn't say majority of us. No, it is a big thing because, I mean, if you look at what is happening to the Palestinians, you know, I mean, they shoot them down like dogs.
Why is the Palestinian flag?
Yes, why there's so many Palestinian
Because
flags
we
here?
support Palestine.
What do you think of Brexit?
I don't really know much about it. I just don't know what's going to happen. You know.
Are you for Remain or leave?
Stay.
Remain.
Yeah, stay.
You want to remain?
Yeah.
You have to stay.
What will happen if there is a hard border here?
Pardon?
If there is an hard border?
Hard border?
Yeah. Will there be troubles again?
Yeah. Excuse me.
Could be, yeah.
Could be.
Yeah.
You have a lot of Palestinian flags here.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because we support them.
Why do you support the Palestinians?
Hit the fucking Jews.
Because what?
The Israelis are scum.
Because we hit the fucking Jews.
The Israelis are scum, killing children, killing women.
You're talking about the Jews.
Yes. Hitler the right idea.
Stealing land too.
They were
Stealing
killing
land.
bastards.
Stole their land and killed their poor children.
Where's yours? You get your gun?
Oh, free Palestine. Where did you get it?
The only thing that Hitler didn't do wrong.
Friend sent away from me.
The only thing Hitler didn't do wrong, he didn't kill enough fucking Jews.
We've since found that out. We didn't think that at the time, but
Hitler didn't kill enough Jews. They're scourge of the world.
What did you say?
The Jews are scourge of the earth.
The Jews are the scourge of the earth.
Yeah.
Do you want to put with me another Palestinian flag together, you and I?
No.
No? Do you want to take it out, you and I?
No. Oh, all the best.
Thank you so
Enjoy
much.
your stay in Ireland anyway. Thank you.
So that was Tuvia in Northern Ireland. That was filmed either in 2018 or 2019, particularly much for research for the book. Were you surprised at the blatant Jew hatred you saw there amongst ordinary Irish people in a pub?
I mean, to an extent, yes, to an extent, no, because I was already exposed to it from my first day, and this is not my first day. I've already exposed to it. You know, I went to a Sinn Féin bookstore, for example. I thought I'll get some books about the history of Ireland or whatever, and what I got there was selling Palestinian flags, free Gaza, and all kinds of things about the Jews who are killing innocent Palestinians. I was bombarded with it already by the time I got there. It was like, okay, yes, of course it's shocking. Of course it's like, what are you talking about? But I was already bombarded on that before, you know, and for the first time it shocked me, but then when I saw it repeating, when I spoke, for example, after I did the first stories that I told there, I went to the Lord Mayor of Dublin, and he told me about, and he welcomed us. He was easy there, and he welcomed us with beautiful cookies, beautiful drinks, and he was dressed very official with the gold things, you know, with all the things, and you know, and then he was sitting there and talking to me, and how proud he is. 30 days every year above the mention of the, you know, they fly the Palestinian flag, and he told me about the great human rights movement called Hamas. I mean, it's like, so I was already bombarded with all these things. Yeah. So by the time I got to that place, okay, it's just another one. It's not like such great news anymore. I mean, it's like now everything goes. Yeah. When it comes to Jews, everything goes.
So did you meet up with the Protestant community in Northern Ireland?
I went to the Protestant community because they said to me over there they fly Israeli flag, and I didn't see one Israeli flag, at least not one. I was there, and when I talked to a Protestant, and I asked him to recommend a good restaurant, and he asked me what kind of I wanted, expensive. I said, no, I don't need expensive, anything is good. And he's like, oh, so you are like the Jews, stingy, huh? This is the lovers of Israel. Okay, thank you very much.
I will say in defence of Northern Ireland, though, that in Northern Ireland we have the most strongest and loyal supporters of Israel than anywhere else in the UK on the Protestant.
But you know what? The difference,
is a bit different.
After spending time in England also, of course, the difference between the anti-Semitism of the English person and the Irish person is, it's a cultural difference. It's not difference. What is, there's no difference what you think about Israel. It's the Irish person is more extravagant. I mean, it's like, is saying it out loud, that the English is more introvert. Yeah. You know, it's very nice about it. It takes time to get the English person to tell you whatever they think, even what kind of food you like. It takes longer, you know, and it's not so loud. It's much more nicely done how much they don't like Jews. You know, but the hate is the same.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. The anti-Semitism is the same. And I went in New York, and you know, Clifford Towers, you know, it's history many, many years ago, and they killed Jews, put 150 Jews over there, and they burned them alive. And there is a tablet at the bottom of the hill, you know, which tells the story. And it's hardly visible for many, many years. The people of York did not want to put it, but then they were shamed not to put it because to ignore that history. When I ask people, normal English people, to please stand with me for a moment and read it for me with the cameras rolling on, and tell me what you think of it. And you could see educated people reading the tablet. 150 Jews were burned alive. Interesting. So you're laughing, like it was a joke, enjoying it. I mean, when you see that, you say to yourself, oh God, oh no. This has nothing to do with Palestine. Many, many years before anything Israel, state of Israel. You're talking about 100 years back. And just the way they laugh about it. It's so ingrained, the hatred. It's so deep. It's just amazing to see it. How deep it is. It's like you don't think about it. You don't think about it. It just comes out.
And what are your experiences up in Scotland? Because I think you've gone into a fair description of all the kind of countries in the British Isles, including the Republic of Ireland. So, yeah, what would you take of Scotland? Because there is a big battleground up in Scotland between those Christian supporters of Israel that love Israel, and of course the very strong supporters of the Palestinian solidarity.
I mean, look at the Church of Scotland. This is the official Scottish church and the official Christian church. I mean, it's Church of Scotland. And they issued years and years ago, you know, the documents called the Inheritance of Abraham. And in the Inheritance of Abraham, which is they still hold as valid, you know, written the assent of their pastors or whatever they call themselves. And what does it say in the Inheritance of Abraham? What does this document say? That biblically speaking, the Jews are not any unique people. And biblically speaking, Israel is not a Jewish state. I mean, hello? What Bible have you been reading?
Yeah.
And this was the case. And I challenged the leader of the church about that.
Wow.
And he was like stuttering. Huh. It was amazing. And then I challenged another leader of the Scottish church. And when I asked him this question, he said, stop the video. Stop it.
Shocking. We do actually now come
and you have nothing else to do in our day and time to issue these documents, which is fake. I mean, biblically speaking, it's totally wrong.
Completely. But we got one of your videos, so let's have a look at Tuvia in Scotland.
Good morning. How are you doing? Guten Abend. Toby, nice to meet you. I mean, being German, of course, the issue is a little bit of interest to us, you know, because of the very sad history of, you know, Germans and Jews, obviously. I mean, you know, World War II, I mean, the Holocaust. You know, we have been traveling around. We also met some members of the Jewish community. Yeah. But when I talked to them, and they told me that they have a big issue with your church, I mean, with the Church of Scotland. They told me that their dialogue with you has broken down, whatever that means, I have no idea. And they talked to me about some kind of a document called, what is this? Inheritance of Abraham. Okay. Do you have anything to say about it?
Yeah, I do actually. I'm very surprised to hear that they said the dialogue is broken down. We've been working very hard at the dialogue this year.
So nothing is broken down?
No, there have been tensions between us, but
the dialogue is continued?
Dialogue is continued. Dialogue is developing.
Really?
So we've moved
It's
on
interesting.
quite a bit. The Jewish community is a small and fragile community, and with the current stories about anti-Semitism, they feel threatened.
Yeah.
But we're trying to be supportive, and learn to hear each other's fears and concerns.
Yeah. Can you tell me anything about the what is this again? What is the name of it? Inheritance Reform. Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about it? What it is about?
Well,
and why it upset them so much? I mean, it's like.
Well, it's a story in the past in many ways, but it was the whole discussion around the place of Israel and how Israel is works as a nation, and we have a lot of interest in the well-being of Israel. We invest there. We have churches in Israel, a school. We have an engagement with Israel as a place. Which we have found difficult to speak with. It's difficult to talk about Israel and not talk about our relationship to Jewish people.
Yeah.
And Jewish people hear our discussions differently.
Yeah.
And what matters then is you have good relationships with people so that you can talk to each other about the things that concern you.
Yeah.
So we're getting to know each other, spend time together.
Yeah, that's perfect. But what is which is the document? What was it about that upset them? As far as you know it.
Excuse me, can we get back to the interview was requested on the grounds that you wanted to hear about the Church of Scotland and the background
Yeah, I mean,
to
this
it.
is part of the Church of Scotland.
Yeah, but
I mean, if you don't feel
quite-
comfortable to answer it, let's
Well, it's up to George.
let George decide.
I just feel the tone isn't.
No, I
It
just.
should build as a relaxed interview about the Church of
It
Scotland.
is relaxed, Andrew. We are very relaxed.
There you go. That's Tuvia's experience in Scotland with the Church of Scotland. I mean, as Christians, they should know better. They should actually read the Old Testament or the Tanakh to realise that God has a special plan and purpose for Israel and the Jewish people. And if
This is not the way they see
they don't
it.
understand that, then it's shameful, because that is a kind of classic example of church replacement theology or supersessionist theology, which is totally unbiblical. Tuvia, what else did you discover in Scotland as well? Didn't you meet with the head of the local council in Dundee?
I went to the local council there, and then wherever you go, you see these Palestinian flags.
I was going to ask you
It's
that.
like, what is it? So they have like twin city agreements or whatever it is. I mean, I was like, what does Palestine have to do here? What does Palestine have to do with Dundee? You know, I mean, it's like everywhere you go, and on the city council, you know, it's like on the top outside, the Palestinian flag is hanging. It's like, why? What does Palestine do with here? I mean, this love for Palestine only because it's the Jews are on the other side.
Yeah.
It was frightening to see it over and over and over again. Even when you went to the Church of England, I went to their event, to their yearly event, whatever they call it, I don't remember the exact name now. And you get this paper from the, you know, everybody gets a piece of paper, you know, it's like, and in it there is an envelope inside. Everybody who comes to the event of the Church of England, and in the envelope, contribution to our brothers and sisters in Palestine who suffer at the hand of the Arab occupiers. And it's like, hello, you have nothing to do here? Nothing else to do here? The only starving people on the planet are Palestinians. Should I take you along to Ramallah, to Jenin, to show you how beautiful they live, to Nablus? They always take, like, when they do these movies and they do this, and they go to the poorest part of Ramallah or the poorest part of Jenin, and they look up the Palestinians suffer. They never show you the beautiful houses in Ramallah. They never show you the beautiful Hebron. It's an amazing city. Beautiful, rich. Go on the streets of Hebron, there's not one Jew there, except for the, you know, next to Marat Machpelah. The 97% of that, there's no Jew there, only Palestinians. Go there and see the cars driving there. Mercedes, Lexus. Go to the shops, restaurants full to the brim. This nobody shows you. How good and well they live. And then you come to London, you know, a Church of England. You have nothing better to do but collecting money from all the world's poor. The only poor people you find are in Ramallah. I mean, are you kidding me?
But
What is this?
But surely the two things I think just want to say to you regarding this, Tuvia. The first thing is the association with the Palestinian flag. Isn't that essentially association with genocide? Because we know that with the leadership of the PLO, the ultimate game is the destruction of the state of Israel and the Jewish people. We have the same covenant charter with Hamas that was established in 1988 that calls for the destruction of Israel and the Jewish people worldwide. And a sense that Mahmoud Abbas is encouraging this hatred against Israel through their media and their education system.
But it's not about Palestinians. The point is, it's not about Palestinians.
That's what I mean.
I was, for example, I was in Jordan, in Amman. I was in a refugee camp called Al Wahdat, where Palestinians live. And everywhere you go, there's a Muhammad, the secret service of Jordanians. They live in a place that is so small, a tiny little place. I mean, a quarter of this room, nothing. I mean, 5 steps, you know, this way, 5 steps that way. And that's where the Palestinians live, each family. Al-Wahdat means the unit, because Wahda is unit, Al-Wahdat. And they live there in total suffering. They can't, that little room serves as living room, as kitchen, as bedroom, as everything, as a toilet, everything. And you can't make it, you can't spread around, you can't build above on the side. They live like animals in the zoo. And I try to get people, when I was there, I'm the Jew. When I left Al-Wahdat, I the Jew, I cried. I felt so much for those people who live in such despair. Caused by them, by the brothers and sisters, the Jordanians. And I try to talk to people who are handling NGOs and all of that. I said, fight for these people.
Absolutely.
No, nobody's interested. You know, because those Palestinians, you know, are suffering by the hands of Jordanians. That's okay.
Yeah. But when you obviously confronted the kind of head of the Church of Scotland there and other representatives you've seen from the Church of England, did they ever discuss the kind of persecution of Christians and how the Christian population of Bethlehem has been radically reduced?
No, they would never talk about it. Never talk about it. I mean, it's like the funny thing that there is a store right there next to the church, next to the headquarters of the Church of Scotland, and it's a store that sells Palestinian goods, and they pay almost nothing. Contribution of the Church of Scotland to the Palestinian people, and you go there. And you hear the worst. You know, soon the Jews will leave. This is what they tell you. The Jews will go back to where they came from.
They come from Israel.
Auschwitz.
They come from Israel.
Auschwitz.
Oof.
And who is supporting it? Who is paying for it? The Church of Scotland. I mean, it's ridiculous.
And
it's racism. It's anti-Semitism.
Of course it is.
It's a pack of lies. And they all stand on it and say, oh, this is our faith. This is your faith? Are you kidding me?
It's not our faith, and it's not the vast majority of you as faith either. But can you share with us your experience of meeting Jeremy Corbyn? Because there's a big photo of you in your book with Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I met him, you know, not like sitting on an actual conversation. I mean, I did converse with him. I spoke to him a few times. I met him in a restaurant. We chatted. I met him at an event in London. We chatted. And then we are supposed to meet him for a long sit-down discussion and conversation and interview. And he agreed to do that. He said, you know, of course, you'd like to interview this German journalist, you know, because that's the way you know me, you know, as Toby, the German journalist. And when I was supposed to meet him, there was like a special session in the parliament, so he couldn't come. He was not in his office at the time. And then I spoke to his secretary, and she said, okay, just remind me, and I'll change the appointment. And by mistake, I have on my iPhone, I have different email addresses. And for some reason, I don't know what, the preference went to the Jewish Theatre email address. Oh. And I didn't change it. And I was fast sending the email, and I pressed send. And then I realized, oh God, I changed it from the email address of the Jewish Theatre of New York. Now the man knows I'm a Jew. And of course, the interview was cancelled. You know, because I have an email address like German press, you know, it's like, and usually I communicate with that, but the preference at that time, you know, on my iPhone was the Jewish Theatre. And I didn't think to change the, no, it was very fast, and that was it. But I did meet his very close friend, Peter Wolfsman, Red Pitt, and they are together on the NEC. I mean, he's one of the members of the NEC, and he's been going out with Jeremy Corbyn for 40 years as friends and political partners. I met him in Oxford in the Randolph Hotel, and while chatting, he told me that all this anti-Semitism stuff that comes from the Labour Party is not really from the Labour Party. It's basically a spy implanted by the Israeli embassy in the Labour Party to make the Labour Party look bad. And those rabbis, the British rabbis who wrote against the Labour Party and about the anti-Semitism, you know, the anti-Semitism law, they were forced to do it by the Israeli embassy. I mean, it's like amazing what the guy said to me. I mean, it's like, you know, this classic anti-Semitic thing, you know, the Jews control everything. The Israeli government controls everything. He tells, and yeah, that was a very interesting conversation.
And I have to ask you, what were your impressions of the Jewish community here? Because they've been up against it, and particularly as we see the largest rises of Jew hatred that we've seen really since the 1930s and 40s, and then the prospect of Jeremy Corbyn getting the keys to 10 Downing Street put a lot of fear in them. I mean, there has been, I think the latest report by the Community Security Trust that was published for 2021 indicates they've had a 50% increase.
Yeah, but the problem is that the Jews refuse to admit it. The Jews would not admit it. They basically cover their face with sand. I mean, their eyes with sand. They refuse to admit it. They refuse to see it. They refuse to look at it. And as much as I try to ask MP who happen to be Jews or lords who happen to be Jews to tell me the story, what do you think of Jeremy Corbyn? Is Jeremy Corbyn an anti-Semite or not? And they wouldn't do it. And I remember one thing. I met a lord, a Jewish lord, and we sat down for a conversation. And he told me how great Britain is, how great the Jews live here, bim bam boom, and everything is perfect, and the Jewish community is very successful. And then when the conversation was over, he said to me, "Sir, did you learn anything new from what I said to you?" I said, "Not really." He said, "I told you what everybody tells you, every Jewish leader tells you." I said, "Yes." And then I said, "You know what, since you raised it, let me make a deal with you. I'm closing everything. No video, no cameras, no name, off the record conversation. Can we redo the interview?"
Oh, no way.
Off the record. Close computers, close everything. He said, "Okay." I closed everything. A deal, I don't mention his name. We sit down again. He said to me, "Everything I said to you before is a lie. This is an anti-Semitic country. The Foreign Service, the Foreign Office, is packed with anti-Semites. This building is anti-Semitic pure. We live in one of the most anti-Semitic countries on the planet. You wanted the truth, you got it, but you don't mention my name."
Wow.
And that's the fact.
Tuvia, I want your reaction to this. A very good friend of mine, and he's also been on the Middle East Report. He's a brilliant guy. His name is Joseph Cohen from the Israel Advocacy Movement. Showed this video of the pro-Palestinian demonstrations that took place in May of last year after Israel's defensive war against the genocidal terrorist organisation Hamas last May, back in 2021. Have a look at this.
On Sunday, as British Jews celebrated the ceasefire in Israel, violent extremists attacked us on the streets. As 2,000 of us rallied for Israel and for peace, including the ambassador, politicians and community leaders, an angry crowd of Islamists and pro-Palestinian activists began hurling abuse at us. A few Jewish boys who were trying to join the rally took a wrong turn and mistakenly walked into the Islamist protest. As I arrived, it looked like two popular YouTubers, Mohammed Hijab and Ali Dawah, were riling up the mob. It was terrifying. The boys had to be rescued by the police as bottles and eggs rained down on them. Mohammed Hijab then threatened a police officer that he'd kill the boy's dog if he saw it again.
However, when those Zionists came in with their dogs, that was an act of provocation. So what we're saying now, and I'm making it very clear so everyone understands, if those dogs come close to us again, we will see it as an act of aggression and we will kill those dogs, we'll put them down.
Hijab and Dawah then led the crowd to Speaker's Corner, and as the mob marched through London streets, screaming, "We'll find some Jews, we want their blood," the police did nothing. Let that sink in. They're calling for our literal blood, and the police are just strolling alongside them.
We'll find some Jews there! We want the Zionists, we want the blood! This is the Nike anti-Jewish edition.
A couple of hours later, we were violently assaulted leaving a kosher restaurant in an anti-Semitic attack. I hate to say this, but I'm not sure there's a future for Jews in this country. We're being attacked on the streets by extremists, and the police do nothing.
The difference between us and them is that for them, they think life begins. For us, we believe that death begins. We believe that life begins at death. We don't care about death. We love death. And if you think that our people in Palestine or across the Arab and Muslim world will let go of the struggle and our sacred places like Al-Aqsa, you are grossly mistaken. You will never, ever, and I say this to Netanyahu, I say this to all of the powers, we will never allow you to put your gross hands on Masjid Al-Aqsa. It will never happen.
After a pro-Palestinian convoy drove through a Jewish neighbourhood threatening to rape Jewish women and children, this odious pair drove to that same neighbourhood, Golders Green, broadcasting inflammatory messages on the side of a lorry. In summary, the UK doesn't feel like a safe place for Jews anymore. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to help us make more videos like this, you can support us on Patreon, or you can purchase the merch, or simply share this video and follow us on all of our social media. It all helps.
And that's thanks to Joseph Cohen there, doing incredible and courageous work, so thank you.
The real anti-Semitism in the country is the white man and white woman. Look at all the organizations, NGOs, various organizations, you know, Glasgow for Palestine, London for Palestine, Solidarity with Palestine. I interviewed them. How many of them you think were Muslim?
Very few.
Almost none. All white people. So to concentrate on a couple of dozen people, a couple of dozen idiots go on the street. This is very important.
Yes, of course.
Because what we are doing, we Jews, we are doing a major crime against ourselves. Because it's so hard for us to look at our neighbor who looks like us, who speaks like us, who is educated and dressed nicely. It's so hard for us to know that he is the anti-Semite, that he hates us, that we go and we try to find some idiots like that and say, okay, here is the anti-Semitism. No, it's your neighbor.
And this is what you've uncovered in your book.
Exactly, it's the neighbor. It's the millions of people. It's not the 2,000 people.
But the reason I showed that is because they were kind of threatening violence, which is very, very different from the subtle Jew hatred that
these people come from the Middle East. Okay, of course they threaten violence. They are not British. You know, they come from a different culture. In that culture, that's what you do. Okay, big deal, but it's the same thing.
Yeah. course.
It's just a different kind of culture.
Yes.
You know, he's saying out loud what the white man, I'm sorry, the normal Brit is thinking. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, the real hatred that we have, if you want to fight anti-Semitism, if you want to see anti-Semitism eradicated, this is the wrong way to go. By pointing out at a dozen or 2 dozen or 3 dozen, whatever it is, it looks like very few people, we're going on the street and saying these stupid things. This is not what's endangered. This is not what the Jews of Britain are not going to suffer from these few people. There are always idiots. There are always extremists in every society. I can show you more than a few dozens of people who think that every person who goes to university should be dead. I mean, I can find you all kinds of idiots. This is the extremist of a small minority. I mean, this is like just a few people. This is what we are going to put our fingers. This is what we are going to think about as anti-Semites? No. The anti-Semite is a guy who goes with a nice suit. Is a lady who goes with a nice, beautiful dress. The politicians of this country, the lords of this country, the nice people, the nice businessmen and women of this country, they are the problem, not these idiots.
Well, thank you for clearing that. And I do understand what you're saying, and I do get what you're saying, because this is the nature of your book and the way that you interview people, and they think you're German, so they're willing to open up their hearts and explain how they genuinely feel. But in terms of your book, which is The Taming of the Jew, there we go, which is a really comprehensive guide to British and Irish attitudes towards Israel and the Jewish people. As Christians, how can we stand against this tide of Jew hatred in this country? How can we speak up for Israel?
We have to be honest and stop putting videos like that. We have to look at the roots of British culture. We have to look at Canterbury Tales, at Chaucer. See the story over there. Very well written, very classic, you know, literature. And what do we see there? The little Christian kid going around and the Jews are slaughtering him. The first blood libel against the Jews, where did it start? Where was the first? In Norwich, here in England. Let's face the reality. So we have to look a lot at our culture.
Definitely.
And be honest with it.
Tuvia, I thank you so much for being my special guest on today's Middle East
Thank you
Report.
for everything you're doing.
That's a pleasure. And I just really want to encourage our viewers to really get hold of this book. It's called The Taming of the Jew. I think it's imperative that we understand our own history, our own culture, and do a bit of self-examination and realise that there is awful levels of anti-Semitic attitudes, not only in Britain, but in Wales and Scotland and in Northern Ireland and in the Republic of Ireland. And if we are to prosper as a nation, and if we are to be blessed by God, as it says in Genesis 12, 1-2, I will bless those who bless you and I will curse those who curse you, then this is something that we need to address. We need to pray into. We need to stand with the Jewish community in this country that feel attacked, and stand with Israel and stand on the truth, as well as the truth of God's word, the truth of Israel's righteous situation in the Middle East, and also the Jewish people. Because if we don't, the consequences for our nation and Western civilization is horrific. So I just want to thank you for watching this special edition of the Middle East Report.